Hey everybody out there on social media, my name is Matthew Johnson and welcome to Steps to Freedom. We are still currently in our new series on how to go through the 12 steps, and today we're going to be looking at and breaking down step 4, the resentment part, as well as discussing and looking at the principle attached to step 4. So like I say in all my other videos, if you do not have yourself a basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous, I urge you, please put this video on pause, go get yourself a copy, as well as some highlighters, pens, and definitely notebook paper to write this down with. You're going to want to write all this stuff behind me and things that I'm saying down. This is probably the most important step 4, that you're going to be doing besides understanding step 1. So if you could do me a huge favor and please like, subscribe, and definitely share this video with as many family, friends, people in recovery or not in recovery, that would be greatly appreciated. My whole goal, my whole mission is to further the message of recovery and the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, I did say gospel of Jesus Christ. If you could please bear with me if you have a resentment against Jesus or Christianity. I do not shy away from talking about those things or letting people know my higher power is Jesus. I don't apologize for God, but I do want to be respectful to everyone's higher power and where you're at. So I hope you haven't stopped watching this video if you have a resentment against Christianity or Jesus. I wasn't always a Christian. That's just where God led me and took me. And I want to uphold the promise that I took in step 3 by turning my will and my life and sharing the gospel of Jesus and recovery with as many that are willing to listen. I don't want to force my beliefs or even recovery upon anybody. Also, I want to let people know that I'm not a pastor or some kind of spiritual guru, that I'm just a simple man in recovery trying to be of maximum service to those especially sick and suffering. So I want to make these videos as short as possible. So I'm breaking down step 4 into 3 sections. Today we're going to be looking at the resentment part. Next week we're going to be looking at the fear part. And the week after we're going to be looking at the conduct, which is also known as the sex conduct part. I feel like, people are more receptive the more I can kind of break this up into shorter videos. But I do want to give that little spiel in the beginning just in case if you haven't seen my prior videos, you'll understand what I'm about. And I urge you, if you haven't seen my prior videos, please go and watch them and get caught up as well as watching the rest of this video. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out. If you want to email me, you can get a hold of me at steps2freedom7@gmail.com. You can also message me through Messenger on our Facebook page and find us there as well. And, leave comments down below, interact with me. This is your channel. These are your social media outlets, and I just want to be of service. So if I can help anyone, if you're trying to get into a detox or a long-term rehab, if you're in the Pinellas County area, I'll do my best to help you with getting in there or connected to other resources. So with that being all said, I just want to give a quick thank you to a viewer, Stephen Johnson, who's also my brother, who donated this microphone, which was awesome, to improve the quality of the sound here in these videos. Hopefully in the future, I'll be able to improve the video quality, but it all comes down to the content. That's the most important thing. So as long as I'm producing the content and you can understand me, that's all I care about. But again, thank you, Stephen, for your donation. I don't ask for money or donations or anything. So that is just an honor and a privilege to have that now. So thank you. So if you can, open up to page 59 of your basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous. All right. And while we're doing that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Matthew Johnson, and I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. You're probably wondering, why do I introduce myself like that? Well, in the meetings, we introduce ourselves, and it says in this literature to introduce myself to the person I'm working with, in this case, all you viewers, that I'm recovered, that I no longer have this mental obsession, and I'm spiritually fit enough to explain this work and go through with it. So that's the only reason I do that each video. I actually introduce myself twice. So on page 59, when we open up, that's where the 12 steps are located. And in every video, I want to briefly just go over the step that I'm discussing and the principle that is attached to that step, kind of give some groundwork on what we're going to be going into and the idea that, you know, you're going to be, what you're going to be going into. So step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So we are going to be looking, searching, discovering the truth, these character defects, which we don't want to look at. I know I didn't, and now I actually look for them all the time so I can work on them. But it's important to be honest, fearless, and search to the best of our ability these character defects and these things that are blocking us from God, so we can work to have them removed, so we can improve our spirituality, our relationship with our higher power. And then it talks about a fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And a lot of people get hung up, oh, the only way, you know, you can be, you know, fearless and very thorough and all that is by taking a long time on your 4th step or any of the steps. And that is entirely not true. I talked about it in a prior video. Look how quick these videos are, and we're going through everything. As long as you're sticking to exactly what's in this book and the information, you can go through it pretty quick. The people back in the day went through all their steps in a matter of days and weeks. I went through my steps in like 30, 45 days, and I take all my sponsees anywhere between 30 to 60 days of going through the step work. So you do not have to be, you know, taking your time with this step in particularly. So understand also, this is about ourselves. It's not about the other person in the sense of I blamed everybody else for my character defects and my consequences for my actions. Now we're looking at ourselves and getting honest. So it's no longer trying to look at the other person. We're just focusing on ourselves and what the problem is, okay? So with that being said, the principle attached to this step is courage. So to do this step and the rest of these steps, you're going to have courage. So please practice that principle. It took a lot of discipline to do this step. I didn't like looking at myself. And then after a while, it was kind of enjoyable. But when I first ever did this, I got hung up a lot. I was calling my sponsor a lot. So if you're not calling your sponsor and asking for help and trying to do this on your own, that's not good. This is actually kind of a confusing step if you've never done it before. So make sure you're staying connected to your sponsor and doing this the way it's supposed to be done. Ask questions. I love it when my sponsees call me and they say, I need help, I don't understand this. And I can either video chat, meet with them in person, or if it's so simple to do it over the phone, I can do that as well. But make sure you're asking questions. That shows that you're willing and you really want the help. All right, so with that being said, let's open up to the bottom of page 63. And in here, there's going to be a lot of reading. I'm going to try to go through it as quick as possible and just hit the real highlighted parts. But we're going to be looking at the bottom of page 63, and this goes all the way to the top of page 68. So we do have some pages to go through, and I have a demonstration behind me. So I'm going to try to get through it fairly quickly and then get into the demonstration. I'll probably just do all that at once because that is really what we really want to get into. But I don't want to skip any of this content so you know where it comes out of. Okay, so the bottom of 63, right here, it starts and it says, Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action. So right there, when are we supposed to start the step 4? Next, right away. And we launched out on a course of vigorous action. So when I hear the word launched, I'm thinking of like a space shuttle. And a space shuttle launches with a lot of force and make sure it's entirely fueled so we can get out of our ozone layer and make it into space. So you need to have enough fuel and velocity to get through this 4-step and all the rest of the steps. So don't burn yourself out. And also make sure you go through it fairly quickly, because a lot of the times, I know for me, you take your time, or I see my sponsees take their time and they think that they don't need to do this work, or they lose drive. As long as you keep going at a good pace, you can keep getting momentum. But if you stop on it, the chances of you actually finishing this stuff drop dramatically, and you have a really high chance of relapse. So be thorough, be fearless, and go through these steps as quick as possible. The first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us have never attempted. Though our decision was a vital, life and death, and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us, character defects. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and conditions. Again, like in my other videos, I am not powerless to drugs and alcohol anymore. That is not my problem. My problem now is me, is my character defects, is my mind. And that's why I need God and to remain spiritually fit so I don't get sick again and get that spiritual malady. Because the more I get that and the more it wears on me, the higher chance I have for relapse. So just remember, I can go anywhere a free man as long as my motives are pure and I'm doing everything the right way, that I don't have to be afraid. I'm not going to be triggered and this and that. That's early in sobriety. You deal with that. I don't have any triggers in the sense of nothing is going to make me go back out drinking and drugging just because I watch Intervention on TV or I'm around people at a restaurant that are drinking. As long as I'm spiritually fit and my motives are pure, I can do anything or go anywhere, as long as I'm humble about it. So then it goes on to say, therefore we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. The object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws, the character defects, and our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease, for we have not been only mentally and physically ill, mentally talking about mental obsession, that delusion, and physically ill, talking about the allergy, that allergic reaction, that phenomena of craving. We had been spiritually sick, talking about that spiritual malady, restless, irritable, and discontent. When the spiritual malady, the spiritual sickness is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. I love that. I've said it in my prior videos that when I treat the spiritual condition, the most easiest and common way to go through it is the 12 steps, that I become spiritually fit over a period of time. Doesn't mean I'm all once like feeling so great all the time and never having any problems. No, but I learn how to deal with feeling uncomfortable. So eventually I can get comfortable again. The only way you're going to have progress in anything, whether it be the physical realm or the spiritual realm, is that you got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable again. That's the only way you're going to learn. You go to a new job or a new relationship, you're uncomfortable in the beginning, you're nervous, you're fearful, and slowly after you get in your groove, you get comfortable. And it's the same thing in the spiritual realm. We have to get uncomfortable by sharing at meetings, doing 12-step work, taking on commitments and being put on the spotlight sometimes, whether it be speaking at a speaker meeting or whatever it might be. These are things that I do even when I'm fearful. I trust God and I have faith. So my fear turns into faith. Next, it's going to be going on to explaining the next 3 columns in this 4-step resentment part. Okay? So these are the 3 columns that we're going to be discussing right now. The 4th is going to be next onto the middle of page 67, but don't concentrate on that right now. We'll get into that. I just wanted to mention it for your notes and to understand why we're just concentrating on the first 3. So I'm going to go through and outline in the book so you can be highlighting and taking notes of all this stuff, where it's at, because everything I say, if it does not line up with the basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous, feel free to disregard. Just like with the Bible and Scripture, we want to make sure what the recovery Scripture is saying. We follow that. I could be saying anything to you guys, and if I'm not backing it up, it could be false, and you probably don't want to do it, even though it could be good. You want to make sure we're sticking to the text, okay? So right here on page 64, we're still on, where it says resentment is the number 1 offender. After it says mentally and physically, then it says in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. This whiteboard is the paper. This is how you're going to draw it out. We listed people, institutions, or principles. So next, I want you to underline and highlight that. And next to that, write column 1. Okay? So that's where it says who. This is column 1. You're going to list people, institutions, or principles. So pretty explanatory. You might have jails and prisons. You might have ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or parents. And you might even have principles like honesty. Maybe you have a hard time being honest. That could be down there, or being dishonest. You could put these things down there to look at as well. Okay? Then it says with whom we listed. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, then it says with whom we were angry. We listed ourselves. We asked ourselves why we were angry. So underline why were we angry and write column 2. Why we were angry, the cause. Okay? In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, ambitions, and personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened, so we were sore. We were burned up. So we'll stop there and I'll show you the effects mine. So you heard where I was saying pocketbooks, ambitions, personal relationships, self-esteem, yada, yada, yada. That's where these are written down, okay? So just because I have these written down here right now doesn't mean that they're all going to apply. I would say the majority of these all applied to everything that I was dealing with in my resentments, but not all of them apply. So I'm going to break down what these actually mean, just in case if you really don't know what pride or things like that are. And then I'll give a demonstration at the very end using all these and so forth. So pride means how others view me. Self-esteem means how I view myself. Make sure you're writing all this stuff down. Ambitions are like goals. What I want to happen. You have personal relationships, okay? Very explanatory, family, friends, all that. Sex relationships, we all know what that is. Security is not always the physical of like your home or residence, which it's applying that, but it also can be emotional security as well. Just kind of separate it a little bit so you and your sponsor know what you're writing down. And then the last one is pocketbook. This book was written a long time ago, so that's why it says that, but that's why I have in parentheses, it says money, okay? And so whatever ones are affected when you do your resentment to whoever or whatever, you're going to put down there, okay? So then, all right, before we go into there, I'm going to wait on that. I'm just going to show you right here, okay? These are the first 3 columns that I just showed you, all right? This is a simpler way to look at it, but it's the same thing. A lot of people, I've talked to a lot of sponsees and they've done this, or people in recovery will see this and they're new in recovery and think they could just work them steps themselves, which you can. Back in the day, they would just send you a book and you would actually work the steps yourself and they would help you along the process. The people up at the main headquarters, I think it was located in New York, and you would go and plant your own group somewhere. After going through the 12 steps and obviously staying sober and recovering. But a lot of people will just jump into doing the first 3 steps, the first 3 columns, and totally miss the key. Not the most important part, but the real part that gives you that psychic change, because we've always put blame on everybody else. That's what we're doing here. But here, we're actually in the 4th column going to be putting the blame on ourselves. That's why it says at the top, where was I to blame? All right, but that, like I said, is on the middle of page 67. I don't know why they did it that way, but here they only have the first 3 columns. So if you're trying to copy this, make sure you get down the 4th column, okay, which is on the middle of page 67. Okay, then it says on the bottom of 65, we went back through our lives, nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. Same thing I always talked about, always blaming everyone else for my consequences and problems that I created. Even though I was so delusional, I didn't even realize that it was always me. I just thought it was the police because they hated me. But really, it was me that caused all this stuff for the police to either hate me or put me in jail. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph was short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to fatality and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit those, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic or drug addict or whatever you're going through, whose hope is in the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is indefinitely grave. We found that it is fatal, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol or drugs or whatever returns, and we drink or use again. With us, to drink or to use is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men and women, but for alcoholics or drug addicts, these things are poison. And I love that right there, because that shows the dubious luxury of normal people can be resentful and hateful and fearful in ways and do whatever they want because they don't have the disease of addiction, that mental obsession, delusion, or illusion, and that allergy of the body that when I put in, this internal craving of more happens until something breaks it or stops it, which is usually jails, institutions, or death. So they can act any way they want. And they're not going to die. They might be miserable and they might be grouchy, and you see those people, rather if they're in recovery or not, you see them. And I know for me, that spirituality, I only can be restless, irritable, and discontent for a short period of time. That's why I'm a chronic relapser, and that's why I don't make it long without doing this 12-step work and actually giving myself over to God on a daily basis. So again, it says these things are poison. We turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. Well, what is the list? This whiteboard is the list, okay? And the key to the future is really the fourth column. That is where the huge psychic change is going to be. Even though all this stuff is important and all has a purpose, the real thing we want to concentrate on is the fourth column. So with that being said, we were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us, and the state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. So some of the stuff, fancied or real, some of it was a delusion that I created. It might not even been true. Maybe someone didn't even hate me, and I think they hated me, so I hated them. Like weird stuff like that. Whatever, some of the stuff was real, some of it wasn't. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol or drugs. This was our course. We realized that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man or woman. How can I be helpful to him or her? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. So I'll stop there. And this is called the sick man prayer, or known as the resentment prayer. So hopefully you'll be taking notes on that. And this is after the third column. I have my sponsees memorize this prayer by each person they're putting down in a column. When they get to the third part, after they finish this, I have them say the sick man prayer. And I also have them add in something where it says, this is a sick man or woman. I'm sick as well. How can I be helpful to them? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. And I love that. It was shown to me to do that way because it evens out the playing field. Because you could be like, this is a sick man or woman. Yeah, how can I be helpful to them? They definitely need my help. Instead of like the humble way to do it, like, this is a sick person. I'm sick as well. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. All right, because the whole point of doing all this is to be of maximum service to others, to live by a new code, love. All right, love and tolerance of others is our code. It talks about it, in the 10th step. So it goes on to say we avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. So we avoid retaliation or argument. So anytime you find yourself arguing and fighting, just remember, is there a purpose to this? It's one thing to have a discussion, but when you're getting resentment and anger and you're offending other people and it's just causing problems, why are you talking about it? Whether it be religion, politics. I'm not perfect of it. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. I'm just saying I try to practice these principles in all my affairs and what this book says and what the other big book says. And when I get to things like this, I question myself, like, why am I talking about it? And I'll just politely say, you know what? We can agree to disagree. I love you, and let's get back to something else. But anytime you find yourself worked up, just think of it. Am I really being helpful? Am I being of maximum service to God and the people around me? Is this conversation worth my time or their time or anyone's time? So always question yourself with that. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, all right, we're going to our list. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. And then it goes on, so get ready to highlight all this, which we're go into. It goes on to explain the fourth column of actually where it comes out. So everything I say, make sure it's lining up with this, okay? It said, where have we been selfish? Okay, there's selfish. Dishonest, self-seeking, afraid. Okay? It says frightened, which is afraid. Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's or woman's. We saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. So we're going to stop there. Now we got the fourth column. So we have all the whole part of the resentment portion of all this. Okay? So now I'm actually going to explain how to really do this. You have the who part. Now, I want to make it clear before getting into this. Make sure you sit down prior to actually putting a person on here. Get a blank piece of paper and sit and any of this work. Make sure no one's really around, that you can just concentrate between you and God and pray. God, help me see the truth. Show me who or what I'm resentful at. And whatever names come up, this is what you're going to put down. Don't try to force anything. Allow God to let this flow. Maybe put on some Christian worship music before. Do a lot of prayer or meditation before. Burn some incense. Whatever you got to do. Just get relaxed and by yourself with no distractions. And whatever names come up, past or present, write down. Okay? You might have only 5 names, or you might have 26 like me. I think this last time when I worked this 12 steps, I had either 26 or 29. I'm not saying that you have to have it. That was the most I've ever had. Usually most sponsees will have anywhere between like 8 to 15 names. I just was really scared to relapse again, and I was like, any name that popped in my head, I wrote it down, and I would share it with my sponsor, and we would just analyze it. So whatever names flow, write it all down on a piece of paper. You're going to have a list with all those names. And when no more names are coming to your head, no more things like authority, prison, jail, family, whatever, okay? Then you're ready to start this process. Then you're going to want to copy this exactly the way it's outlined. All right? You write who, the cause, affects mine, where was I to blame, all at the top. And then all this should be blank, except you want to have this in here: self-seeking, selfish, dishonest, and afraid. So you can have this on a separate piece of paper, like copy this down, have it next to you to use as a reference. Then you have your list of all your names. Then you're going to take one name for one resentment. So if you have, say, 15 names, you should have 15 pages of paper that look like this with one of each name under the who. Does that make sense? A lot of people get this confused, and they'll write down all the names right here, and then they'll write all the causes for the people, and it's all jumbled up and everything, and then they'll have all this filled in, and it makes it too complicated. Remember, we're trying to isolate each one of these resentments and each one of the things of our actions and thoughts and all that. We're trying to isolate them so we can see the character defects, so we can see the blaming of others and the accountability of ourselves. So this can kind of be very confusing, especially over video. So if you have to replay this several times or look at other sources to get a better picture, or hopefully talking to your sponsor if you're in recovery to get a better picture of this, please do so. But again, one person's name or principle or whatever for one page. Okay, so this is how you're actually going to do it. You're going to have, I'm going to give a demonstration for one of mine. Okay, so The mother of my child. Her name goes right there. The cause. Why am I resentful at her? She put me in jail, took my child away from me, put me on child support, won't let me talk or see my child, turned all my family and friends against me, said horrible, degrading, embarrassing things. She hit me, spit on me, all kinds of stuff, right? And the list goes on. I put everything down there that I want to blame her for, rather if it's true or not. And once I can't think of anything else, then that portion is done. Then I'm going to go over to the effects my part, and I'm going to look at all the things that we priorly discussed, and whatever ones apply to this, I'm going to write into this column. All right, so again, was my pride affected between all the things I said? I look at each one and I see, does pride go to each one? If it does, I put it down. I kind of sum it up with looking at everything and then putting it. So I don't have to write for each one. I'm not going to put pride like 4 different times. I sum it up. If it's not, then I can separate it, if that makes sense. Self-esteem, was that affected in all those situations? How I view myself? Yes. Ambitions, like my goals, what I want to happen, was everything affected in that? Yeah, it didn't go the way that I wanted to go. Personal relationship, was that affected? Yes, between me and her. Sex relations, definitely yes, that was affected. Security, I lost my home when I went to jail, and emotionally, I was not okay. Pocketbook, my money, was that affected? Yes, it was affected when I lost my home, when I went to jail, lost my job, all that stuff. Paying child support. So every one of these is going to be affected. And then you're going to do the sick man prayer. Okay? So now before going to the 4th column, I'm going to say, God, this is a sick woman. I'm sick as well. How can I be helpful to her? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. After that is said, I can go over to the 4th column. Now, while I'm over here, I disregard all this entirely. Remember, none of this matters anymore. I got to say and blame and point fingers at that person, at her, all I wanted, but now no more. Disregard her entirely. Now, where was I to blame? We're going to start at self-seeking, because self-seeking is the action. All right? So the action of self-seeking was, I hit her. I abused her mentally, physically, verbally. I was drinking and drugging. Okay? Because I hit her, that's why I lost my apartment, because I got a felony, and that's why I was arrested. Rather, if she hit me or not, doesn't matter. You see, that doesn't matter anymore. Most people will be like, well, she hit me first. It doesn't matter. Only your actions. What else? I decided to have a child with her. Whether if it was an accident or not, I'm the one that should have taken precaution if I didn't want to have a child. If I didn't want to take care or pay child support. Especially if we weren't married and the relationship didn't work out. That's my fault. And because I did all those actions, that's why I was badmouthed, because of my actions. So all that stuff that she was saying was true. I deserved to be the truth being told. That was the monster that I was. Okay? Then we go into the selfish, which is the thought or attitude. So make sure you write that down. Thought or attitude. Okay? So selfish is going to be things like jealousy. It's going to be things like pride, ego. It's the thought or the attitude. Okay? So remember, thought or attitude is selfish. Actions is self-seeking. That's why I put actions first, then it goes thoughts or attitude. So because I was jealous and because I was a narcissist, because I was self-absorbed about myself, because I was angry, because I was fearful, those are all character defects. Those I'm going to be writing here. All right. And they don't always have to be really small like that. I just, over a period of time, that's the way I can see them all now. You might be writing things like, I was angry at her, and it might be written out more. If you need more paper, you can do that. But I sum it up. Like, I was angry, I put angry. I was a narcissist, I put narcissist. I was prideful, I put prideful. I was, lustful, I put lustful. A heaven child. Hateful, abusive, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, it's the thought, though. Just remember that's not the action. Okay? Next, dishonesty. All right? Dishonest. So, very easy. Lying, manipulating. I lied, I stole from her, I manipulated her, I put high expectations on the person that I wanted her to be, maybe not realistic, all that type of stuff. And I also disclose, like, if I did steal, like how much money I stole, or even if I stole drugs, or if I damaged property, anything like that, I write the money amount here in dishonest. Then we go on to afraid. I was afraid that I would never get to see my child. I was afraid she was going to leave me or not love me. I was afraid she was going to cheat on me. I was afraid of all these things. And 9 times out of 10, all this stuff comes true. It's always everything you're afraid of, like, ends up coming true anyway. So things I'm trying to prevent, I'm actually causing more damage and speeding up the process of my fears coming true because of my actions. If I would have just let God handle everything and control everything, the outcome would have been a lot different. I can tell you that. All right. So with that being all said, that is the proper way to do a 4-step. Then after that, I would take this piece of paper and I would move it over to the side. And again, another piece of paper, I make the outlines with the who, the cause, effects mine, where was I to blame, with the lines and all that. And then I write in self-seeking, selfish, dishonest, afraid. Self-seeking is the action, selfish is the thought or attitude. And then when I put the person's name in there, I write all the resentments till I can't anymore. And then I write what is affected. If all of them go in there, sometimes, or I would say a lot of the times that all goes in there. If not, I just put the ones that are affected. All right. Hopefully that made sense. It's not as easy to explain it over video than it is in person, because you could be asking questions and I could ask and answer back. Please bear with me. Hopefully I did a good job on that. If you have any questions, email me and all that kind of stuff. So the bottom of 67, we're going to be starting at that paragraph where it says, notice the word fear. I did not write the word fear up here, but I'm going to talk about it and then I can write it up there. It says, notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. So what are they referring to on the middle of page 65 when I talked about the first 3 columns? Okay, notice it'll say the word fear in here. Okay, fear is actually right here on the corner. If you see it on 65, it says it is bracketed alongside. So it kind of sum all this up. Fear is bracketed. You know, a good way to look at all this stuff, anything that is negative is fear. Anything that is positive is faith, is God. Okay? So fear is the devil, God is positive. All right? Is the faith, is the positivity. That's the easiest way to kind of sum it up. I also kind of use the example, which I'll do briefly, of say a woman's going to give birth. All right? When and I'm not trying to give a sex class or anything, but when a woman conceives, right, then the baby starts growing to the point when the baby's fully developed, she gives birth. Well, the same thing happens in the spiritual realm, in the sense of you're either going to have fear or faith. You're either going to have negativity or positivity in there, okay? So if I, for an example, I'm going to It's always going to start with the thought or the attitude first before the action 9 times out of 10. So example, you have fear, which is conceived. Then it goes into, say, jealousy. Okay? Then the jealousy and control, all right, turn into, let me go through your phone. Or who are you talking to? Once that is birthed out into action, then it becomes real. Other than that, it's just in my mind. No one knows about it except for me. But as soon as I let that start affecting my actions and I give birth to it, then that's where the consequences are going to happen. And the same thing happens with positivity. You have good stuff, right? So if I'm more spiritually fit and I'm always in that positive God mode, then everything I'm thinking 9 times out of 10 is going to be healthy, spiritually fit, and positive. And I put that stuff out, I get blessings back. So you're either going to get consequences because of your actions, or you're going to get blessing because of your actions. So the more I do this work and I'm spiritually fit and really work in a program, the more I'm putting out positivity, the more I'm getting back. But the more I'm being, say, jealous or angry, for another example, selfish thought or attitude starts with fear first, then it gives birth to anger. And there's healthy anger, there's righteous anger. But if I let it not to be that, and it goes into violence and me punching somebody in the face, then it's put out as action. And now I physically harmed somebody. Now I get the repercussion from it. You see what I'm saying? So look at it. Fear gives birth to whatever, and that gives birth to the consequence. Or positivity gives birth, or conceives, and then gives birth to whatever that is positive. Hopefully that made sense, but that is a really cool description that I kind of go with and do with my sponsees. So again, it talked about fear, is giving birth to all that. All right, and then it goes on to say on the bottom of 67, the short word fear somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune. We felt we didn't deserve, but did not we ourselves set the ball rolling. Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. And that's where we're going to end on the top of 68, because in the next, it's going to go into the fear portion. Next week, we're going to do that. I hope you liked the video. I hope it really helps somebody. I know it's really confusing, and this is the first time I actually did this on video. So hopefully I didn't leave anything out. If I did and you have other questions, like I said, please email me at steps2freedom7@gmail.com, or message me through Messenger or Facebook, whatever social media platform you might be using, try to get a hold of me with. And I'll do my best to answer any questions and get back to you, depending on how many people are reaching out to me, as quick as possible. So again, hopefully you like that. If you do not mind, if you could please like, subscribe, and share this video, that would be greatly appreciated. And hopefully I will see you next week. If no one told you that they loved you today, just know that Jesus does, and so do I. God bless everybody.